So how can you supercharge your workflow and create unbelievable cinematic sounds you won't find in just one sample library? The answer? Stacks. Hey, this is Michael Whitaker with FilmScoreSeminar.com. Today we're going to learn about 3 stacks that I use to make my music sound more cinematic and also to move me faster through the scores. Go ahead and smash the like button and the subscribe button, and we'll get into it right now. All right, let's talk about stacks. First of all, let's talk about what they're good for and what they're not good for. So what they're good for is, number one is speed. So a good stack, instead of orchestrating every little string part or every little woodwind part, the stack is there and you can play it more like a piano player. And the drawback of that is you play it like a piano player. So you really need to think of, when you're playing the stacks, you want to play it as if it's a section, and it breathes and ebbs and moves like a section. So it doesn't sound like a piano player just playing. Another benefit of a stack is that you can get these massive sounds, or these really intriguing sounds that you couldn't get by just playing a string sample. So in that sense, you can get sounds you couldn't get with our standard stock library unless they've already done stacks for you. Finally, stacks are really good for fleshing out your arrangement. Instead of going through every single note and every single instrument, you can flesh it out faster with a stack and then go back and use the stack and add the elements you want. So what I mean by that is, for example, I may have this big action scene and I'm going to use a stack to get through that bombastic section. And I'm going to go back and maybe add single brass, percussion, and things that are more detailed over that stack. So you get a nice combination. And trust me, when you're on a deadline for a TV show, using stacks will move you through action scenes and other types of scenes without you having to necessarily write for every single instrument. Because it's just, doing film scoring is doing data entry. So the stacks kind of minimizes that. Okay. The thing that stacks don't do well is subtleties. They don't do subtleties. If you want a flute trill here, or if you want the strings to go to, to vibrato, to more vibrato, staccato, key switching, they'll do that, but of course you have to take your hands away from that or do some programming for those types of events to happen. So in general, I use the stack as a bed and add elements over it, okay? All right, let's break down this first stack, which is what I call the action stack. It's a stack of both brass and strings, doing staccato pretty much. But there are also some longs married into it. So if I want to hold it, it'll hold. If I want to go fast and do staccato, it'll do staccato and kind of marcato. But it's very playable. Let's take a listen to that by itself. Really cool, right? It's hard to program that and get that massive amount of sounds, and it's also nice to play it all at once. So let's start with the first sound, which is the Albion Iceni library, the Combi Brass Patch. And let me solo that. Not nearly as big by itself. but that's adding a really cool upper brass sound, and it's one of my favorite kind of upper trumpet sounds. And you can also use this as a long patch as well. But right now I have it on shorts. Now I love the Caspian library. We'll play this and we'll solo these libraries. That's the French horns. Here's the 3 bass trombones. What's so great about these libraries, they're playable by themselves. You don't have to do a lot of editing. Of course, the mod wheel changes the timbre of the instrument. That's the Caspian trumpets on top. By themselves, they sound a little thin, but they add a nice texture in combination. From there, we have the famous Symphobia library. And Symphobia, right now I have those Marcato string brass ensemble, Marcato with percussion. That's a great sound. And underneath that, I have a staccato version. And that sound by itself has been on a million trailers. The staccato brass, tutti with percussion. That's in Symphobia 1. Okay, so combining all these together, we get this. Right, so awesome trailer patch, you know, or if you have an action scene, even like major, like happy stuff sounds good. Okay, I love that kind of stuff. Adding into that, underneath, I'm going to put a string patch, and I'm going to put this. It's a custom patch I have. It's in G player, but this is back from my Giga sampler days. This is if I play this, okay, so that's a custom patch. You can't buy that patch, but they're but you can grab other patches that sound similar to that. It's a staccato patch, but it's a little longer, so it'll. And married with that other patch, it sounds like this. Right? Pretty huge sounding. So that's stack number 1. That's the epic brass and string patch, and this will get you through tons of action cues without having to write every single note, right? All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, stack number 2 is this beautiful soft woodwind patch that I use. And I use this a lot, like for under dialogue or in a more emotional moment. When you don't want to write every single little thing, this is very nice. It's very subtle, but it also has some movement underneath it. So starting out again with the Albion Iceni library, we're going to use the Woodwind Combi patch, and that sounds like this. And this is a stack in itself they've made, so you can hear those the low bassoon and clarinets as it goes up, adding the oboe and then the flutes. That's a great stack by itself. On top of that, let's go to the Spitfire Audio British Drama Toolkit. This is really cool. What I love about this sound is you want to always fake out the ear when you're doing MIDI orchestration, or if you don't have a live orchestra, you know. So these sounds, they ebb and flow, right, as you hold them. So, and they have different variations of that, right? So that one's, here's one with some winds and strings. Hear how it's moving? So it's not a static sound. So your ear, in MIDI, if you stay on a static sound all the time, your ear gets used to it. So adding these things that kind of move, these kind of sounds, it sounds more realistic. So I have that married with the other sound underneath there. Underneath that, I wanted a really beautiful soft string sound. So let's look at the Venice Modern Strings. This is a really cool cool sound by Fluffy Audio. Yes, Fluffy Audio. Listen to that. Just one of my favorite soft string patches. Beautiful. From there, I think that's the first part of that patch, and then all together they're going to sound like this. You'll kind of hear all those elements. Hear how it's kind of ebbing and moving? As I pull the mod wheel down, you hear those strings still ringing out. That's nice. Now maybe I want to add a piano to this. This is sometimes if I want that kind of effect, I might add a piano. Maybe even pulling down the woodwind stack, pulling up the piano stack. Right? And that adds some drama to your piano. Really nice. So that's our woodwind and low string stack. And you can experiment with libraries that you have, but that's kind of the vibe of getting that texture. right, the final stack I'm going to show you is a string stack. That stack, it consists of a bunch of different sounds, and as it raises in volumes and lowers, the timbre changes. That's another good element of a stack. The timbre will change, or you can make it to change at different dynamic levels. So let's start with the Vista strings. That's the first library we're going to play. Let's just isolate them here. That's Vista violins, married now with Vista violas. Important to play these stacks like they're strings and not like they're pianos. Here's another one, cellos. And I've taken the legato off this patch. It has a beautiful legato as well. I could turn that on. But for our case, because since we're playing polyphonically, we don't want to have that. And then finally the Vista basses, you know. And then on top of those, I have a whole nother library, which is the Nashville symphonic string library. Now, in general, we don't like to stack a whole bunch of libraries, especially strings and brass, because it becomes unrealistic because there's like too many players playing at once. But in this case, we're going for a really huge cinematic sound. So in that case, that's why we're doing this. So we have the A and B libraries going together. And then we have finally the Venice strings polyphonic legato. So that sounds pretty cool. On top of that, and in any string library situation, a lot of times I will add a smaller section. So when you go to LA scoring strings, it's kind of my go-to small library because and it's a smaller, and you hear more of the rosin on the bow. And I put that and kind of marry that underneath the other libraries, and it adds a nice effect. Okay, so I have the violins, violas, and cellos going on those libraries. Now the final mix with that is East-West Play. There's a patch called under the full strings Legacy. It's the Molto Vibrato patch from full strings, and let's check out that. And that by itself is pretty awesome. And notice how this patch starts out with no vibrato, and as you get louder, adds more vibrato. All right, so both of these stacks together sound like this. Good for just sustains, right? Very dynamic, watch. It's very important you work the dynamics with these for realism. All right, so that's our string stack, and hopefully this is giving you some ideas to make your own stacks as well. If you don't have all these libraries, it's not a big deal. Just start using your own libraries and creating these stacks, and you'll come up with really cool sounds that maybe nobody else has tried together. All right, I hope this lesson has been useful and really giving you some tools to combine your libraries to make even better and more cinematic sounds. And if you're interested in more videos like these, go to filmscoreseminar.com and check out my full course on film scoring. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next one.